From Country Island to 120 games at Carlton, now at Geelong, the charismatic and hard-working Zach Tuohy opens up about his footy journey, including his biggest fear in code changing, his secret to making friends at new clubs, and which Cats coach made him feel like a giddy little schoolgirl. Zach Tuohy, thanks for joining us, the journeyman in more than one sense.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, but yeah, you could say I've been called worse than the journeyman.
Yeah, my word. And you've had a busy day as well. You've been put through the ring. You're just talking to the Irish Times.
Irish Times, and had VFLW breakfast and had Goal FM before that, and an Oz kick after it. So busy. Mate,
it's all happening. I'm sort of. In doing the research, it wasn't quite where to start. I mean, you're a really interesting character, and I've got so much admiration for these international guys. I scratch my head sometimes as well, but admiration as to how you uproot your life, go from one country to another, and play this native game.
Yeah, it's a unique game as well. When people who haven't seen it, the first reaction is always a bit of awe and wonder, but I guess look, the skill set is you can translate the skill set really well, and I've said before, I've just had a lot of good people around me, so happy to take as much credit as you want to give me, but some of it should go to some of the other people around me.
I'd be taking it all. Like we grow up living and breathing footy, right? We're watching it on the TV, you're kicking it in the backyard. I mean, the ball is oval, it makes no sense, at least you're playing with the round ball, right? But I mean, what was your upbringing like?
Yeah, well, it was the cultures. Australia and Ireland are very similar. Obviously, some differences, but I mean, so I grew up playing soccer and hurling, just the other kind of major Irish sport, and Gaelic football, and I really desperately wanted to be a professional footballer. It was probably soccer was where I thought it was the only pathway to a professional sport that I had. So that was kind of right, well, let's see if I'm any good at that. It was okay, I was never going to make it. Funny, a guy I grew up with, he ended up spending a few years with Celtic. I can just remember being so jealous, just seething with jealousy, and happy for him, but I really, really wanted it to be me. So when the opportunity came up, it's kind of one of those, I just couldn't let it go by. I remember my first year I was thinking, look, just go. If it doesn't, you get to Christmas time in your head, you can always come back. But I've just loved it, and it's nearly 10 years ago now. It's crazy.
I've got so many questions. So hurling is obviously a physical game. Gaelic not so. One of your best attributes in our game, notwithstanding is your physicality. I feel like that would have been wasted. It's on down the Gaelic part.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess it's quite physical. You don't get the same crash and bash, and obviously the actual tackling. You can't actually tackle. But it's still a pretty high contact sport. But it's funny, so the physical side of the game I really enjoy. Even the sledging side of it, I know we kind of have to be a bit careful these days, but that didn't exist at all really in GA, I didn't think. And then you came out here and blokes trying to, so it's funny, same skill set as I said, but some of the nuances in the sport are quite fun. We shouldn't stamp them out. I know we're real careful about what you can and can't say on field, but geez, we shouldn't stamp out sledging.
We'll get to that. But I'm just interested in terms of, how do you get identified as an Irishman at home to either have the skill set to play Aussie rules and notwithstanding similarities? And then what does that look like? I mean, I think you came over and trained with Carlton for a 4-week trial.
Did a month,
and then picked up in the rookie draft. Yeah,
it was funny. So I played I played half-back with Laois, my home county, and I guess I've spoken to the guy who spotted me initially, Jared Sholly, and the thing he said was he just liked how I moved. I'm not sure what that exactly means, but he thought I covered the ground quite well, and that was typically a trait he looked for. And he just said that was the first thing that kind of made him spot me. I actually think he'd probably still be better at picking Irish guys than I would. But yeah, they look for guys who they think can kind of move okay, and I mean, I got put into a combine in Ireland with maybe 25 guys, and from that, 2 of us got picked, and I was the only one who came of the 2 of us. Kieran Sheen came a few years later, but we were the 2 who were identified. So, I didn't like. So Colin Begley, who's played Brisbane and St Kilda, he's from my county, so I knew of the sport, and when the opportunity came up, God, I was so desperate to get it. Like, this was it. This was my chance to kind of be a professional sports person. So when I was at that combine, I remember I wasn't quite the fittest, although it's not a bad area. Yeah. But of the crop we had, I can distinctly remember feeling like, you know what, I reckon I can kick it a lot better than these guys. Yeah. I don't know if that was what got me over the edge in the end, but I think that was maybe my point of difference from the rest of the Irish guys.
So, notwithstanding the similarities between the Irish and the Australian culture, I guess your sporting experiences in Ireland, and then coming to Melbourne, and then obviously Carlton, the professional atmosphere that is Australian rules football. How does that compare to what you've been exposed to previously?
Well, it just doesn't. I mean, so I never got the chance to play at the top level back home because I left when I was 18. I was only kind of starting to break in. But it's funny, so basically at the really competitive level, this is all I've known. So I kind of didn't have anything to compare it to, so it'd be interesting if I did end up back in Ireland or playing senior GAA, what the differences would be. But this kind of culture and atmosphere, this is really all I've known. So it's hard to kind of say, it's so much different to what the GAA guys have, because...
Is the scrutiny the same?
Yeah, it's the biggest sport in the country, GAA, football. Some counties are hurling, some counties are football, but it's starting to become just huge. And although I don't know the specific details, it's kind of gotten to the stage where the top counties are really starting to pull away from the lower ones, and I was one of the smaller, traditionally weaker counties. So my future was maybe more limited than some other guys. It's the biggest sport. They're under a lot of pressure, a lot of media coverage, but still nothing like it is here.
Is the ball the biggest barrier? Is that the hardest?
I didn't find that at all. And same with actually Satanto Halpine, who I played with, because I remember him telling me what he found hardest, and I agree. This is what I found hardest. Was the game is so much more like nuanced, and because the ground is so big, there's so much structure to understand, and that just was not natural for me. So in GAA you typically play in your position, like you hold that area of the ground, that's just how you play. But when I came out here, it's funny, my first intra-club, it seems so stupid worrying about it now, but the thing I was really worried about when I was going into play my first intra-club was, how do you know when to come off the ground? What if I run off at the wrong time? Like, how do you know when you're supposed to come off? I found that so weird, just run off and on. And I was really nervous about coming off at the wrong time, and of course, that just shows how innocent and naive, and so just the structure of the game and where to run and all these things. So much harder than the skills.
We're getting off track here a little bit, but there's a lot of commentary at the moment around the aesthetics of the AFL and the way the game looks, the way the game is played. Is Gaelic... Do they change the rules in Gaelic as much? Do they have those same discussions? Yeah, they do. I don't have to do it as much, but they introduced the mark into GAA. So just from, I think it's, I hope I'm not wrong here, I should know, but it's just from kick-ins, and if it's marked between the 65s or the 45s, so in that whole middle section. So it's basically to try and reward the guy who flies and grabs it, because what used to happen was, because there's no mark, he'd fly and grab it, and then he just gets swarmed and gives away a free kick. So they're open to change. I sometimes wonder if we shot ourselves in the foot a bit in AFL by... It feels to me now that as soon as a problem arises, the answer is to tinker with the rules instead of just maybe let the dust settle a small bit. But I get it, I understand it. So what are the motivations for GA changing the rules? Is it for the spectator? Is it for the player's safety, as we've done here? So things like concussion aren't an issue in GAA. I'm sure they happen every now and then, but pretty rare. I have to assume it's for the spectators, because it's like any sport. You want to exaggerate and accentuate the good things in the sport. Now we don't. Marking the ball and flying, sitting on top of guys' shoulders isn't part of GAA, but it's still a really attractive skill that they're trying to encourage. So
I don't think they change the rules nearly as much as AFL, but the rules that have been changed, I think, are to make the game look quicker and prettier.
So in terms of our game and our rules now, just leave it as it is for a little bit?
Well, look, I get that it's frustrating and people, like, there's some low-scoring games, and I just don't like that the first instinct seems to be, I read in the paper that had a list of 10 potential rule changes, and some I get, and some are just like the idea of zones doesn't quite sit well with me. But I think you could probably do some stuff with centre bounce. You have to hold 6-6-6, or I'm not sure. Look, I guess I don't have the answers to how to fix the congestion problem, but it's just a bit frustrating as a player to hear all this speculation about new rules you might have to try to adapt to. But I do understand that, having said that.
Certainly as a past player as well. Enough of that. Now, Ireland has been a happy hunting ground traditionally for the AFL, and as you said earlier, there were two guys in particular from that training camp that were identified. You came out, the other maybe a little bit later. You always wanted to be a professional sports person. What have you got? What did you have then that allowed you the confidence to be able to uproot your entire life and come out here? The dedication to give yourself the opportunity and then to become a strong player.
The opportunity came up at a really good time for a few reasons. One, I was just leaving school, and the other was that the recession had just hit. And this is like sort of sounds a bit goofy, but I like guys finishing years in college and coming out and not being able to find work.
So that was university or secondary school?
So I finished secondary school and kind of had a year out, and then I came to Australia, and in that kind of year out is when this stuff all crashed. That wasn't, I guess, the prospect of going home and trying to work wasn't a huge motivation, because I was still more determined just to be a professional player. Like, it wasn't a fear of going back to work. But if ever the mood struck me that, geez, I'm missing home, all I had to do was just think of really what would I be doing. And it was a big move, and I'd never left home before. I'd never even travelled by myself. But I knew, like, even in the times when I was a little bit homesick, I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I just had to sort of ride the ups and downs when they came along. Although there were not many downs, but just had to.
And so that homesickness was fleeting? Very fleeting.
And it's funny, like, I just did an interview for an Irish paper, and the truth is I miss playing football more than I missed my family in that. And it sounds bad, but your family can come out and you can talk to them. The world's pretty small these days. And all my family were pushing me out the door. Like, they knew this is what I wanted to do. They knew, so I kind of had that support. But when my first year here, my local team won the Leinster, which is the provincial sort of national title. God, that was hard, missing that. Like, it was proper, like, gut-wrenching sort of stuff. But again, you just have to go, well, it's hard, but...
So I guess effectively you didn't give yourself any other option, right?
Yes, that's a good way of putting it,
The thought of going home and certainly not being unemployable, but being jobless because of the economy was a fear.
But even if I could go home and walk into a comfortable job, it's still not professional football. And that's what I wanted to do. Like, even if I knew I'd go home and get a great paying job, even if it paid more, it's kind of like a large part of what I like to think drove me was just the curiosity as to whether or not I could actually do it. Because a lot of Irish guys come out here and don't, and a lot of at that age better known players than me didn't do it. I just thought, I wonder if I can. So it was this kind of combination of everything. The stubbornness that most sort of competitive sports people seem to have. So it's a combination of it all.
And so when the draftees, the young kids come into to the system now, do you sort of advise them to pursue your interest, be it university or a trade or those other passions, or because you sort of gave yourself no other option to a certain extent? This is it.
I think you can forgive young guys in the first year or two. Like, you can give them that leeway to just focus on football. But it's such a tough competition now that, like, they just have to have something to fall back on. Reality says you just need something to fall back on, and I've got a few things I might be able to do outside of footy now. And I mean, the one thing I would try and hammer home at younger guys is that just, like, relax. Like, it's it's so stressful. Like, the whole thing is so stressful. Just take it easy. It's something this club does really well. But yeah, like the interests outside of football are like they're very, very connected to football because it's what's going to make you play well. Like getting away from it and switching off will help your football.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky balance. Every player will be different. Like I spent the first 2 years just worrying about football.
Yeah.
Just trying to pick up the things I needed to pick up, and then I kind of just ran from there. Some guys would be different.
You sort of came up a short runway in that sense.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, I had to be
into the game, you should say.
Yeah, try and be a bit of a sponge for 2 years and then worry about the other stuff.
You said this club, Geelong, does it well.
Does very well.
You obviously came from Carlton to Geelong. In reflection, how do you feel about your time at Carlton? Fond memories, or what's the...
Yeah, absolutely. Very limited success, I guess, in my time. That's just the fact. We were quite strong early in my career there, but I loved them, and they're the ones who gave me the opportunity and gave me all these things, so I appreciate that. But the industry sets the game. Like, you just have to sort of, I'm trying to steer away from cliches, play the hand you're dealt and all this. But it just got to a stage where the path, Carlton were on was different. I wasn't going to be a part of their future, which is, again, fine, it's part of the game. But in terms of, I wouldn't change my time. I wouldn't have left earlier if I could, or I wouldn't have done anything. But the time was right for me to leave. It was the right decision for both of us. So it's worked out quite well.
So that the period of time you had at Carlton, you were very successful initially, and then they not lost their way, but lost a lot of players.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I've reflected on it a few times. We had a really good year in, I think it was 2011. Yeah, I think it was. We lost the West Coast by a few points, but at that stage we were an up-and-coming team and everyone tipped us for pretty good things the next year. Started the next year, I think we won the first 3 games pretty convincingly, and we're getting tipped for great things. And then I can't remember why. I'm not even sure we made finals that year from that point. So, and then from there we just kind of never recovered. And as much as I loved my time, and I did, like Tyke's the only Irish guy who's won a flag. Jeez, it'd be nice. And once you get to a certain age, I think it's getting better now with sports science. Not that I don't think I'm at a certain age just yet, but you never know. I might only have, say, my last year at Carlton, I might have been thinking, well, I might only have 4 years left, 5 years left. It's hard to know. It's like I really want to be competing in that last 4 or 5 years. And while it can turn very quickly, and there's no reason it can't turn for Carlton very quickly, Geelong were kind of at a stage where they were looking like they're ready to sort of challenge or be competitive for a few years. And I just had to weigh it all up, and that was kind of the determining factor in the end.
Yeah, and you made that right decision. How do you compare the two clubs? The feeling walking out of Carlton into Geelong, who are one of the strongest on-field and off-field, and in terms of that welfare, really important piece, I'd imagine, for a player coming into the club. Yeah,
it's funny, although I have had different coaches, the clubs have very different philosophies. And I understand some of it at Carlton is born out of necessity. Such a young list. We spent a lot of hours at the club, and it was a very, very detailed and regimented schedule, which again I enjoyed at times. But I've come here, and it's a much more player-driven culture, and we're given a lot of downtime provided we do the work. It's one of those things where you're expected to work incredibly hard when you're here, but if you do the right thing, the club do the right thing by you in terms of looking after you and time off and all that kind of thing. And as a slightly, well, I was an older player at Carlton. I'm actually an older player here as well. I'm not too far off the top, which is worrying. But that was really nice. I have a young family. I get downtime with them. Geelong is an easy town to get around. It's just worked out. Yeah, there's big differences, but Geelong are just further down the path of their click word now, culture, but they are just a bit further down, having had some success in recent times.
And so, it sounded like at Carlton you came from, you started there with a reasonably strong culture in terms of the success that you'd had, and then dropped away, and then you stepped back into a really strong culture at Geelong.
Yeah.
Are any of those learnings from Carlton transferable in terms of those experiences you had?
Yeah, I think so. Again, it's a hard one to know. Like, reflecting on my time at Carlton, like, it was a good place to be, like, it was a good place to train and work, and it was really frustrating because as poorly as we played sometimes, it was just so hard to figure out why. Because we loved the company we had there, and we loved the people we were with, but there's, and there are little telltale signs that I wouldn't like to creep into here now. You know, just it's hard. It's hard when you're going to be careful. It's just you can get a certain feeling when a club has been beaten down for a long time, like we were. There's just a certain uncomfortable atmosphere, and even in reviews and stuff, there's an air of something not quite right. And here, even though we underperform from time to time, I'm kind of still hyper aware of that feeling, and I just don't get it as much. It's really refreshing.
Yeah, it's even during periods of success. I mean, we had it at Hawthorn.
Yeah.
Those feelings creep in, and I know from my experience, selfishness almost, in that
it's self-preservation type of attitude.
It really is.
Yeah.
And when guys feel secure. And when you feel like it's an even playing field in terms of form, as opposed to favouritism, I mean that's what it was like for us.
Yeah, and it's kind of a hard one to put your finger on, but yeah, I agree. I mean, because Carlton's a sleeping giant. Like, everyone knows how big the club is, and look at like Richmond have just kind of just come from nowhere, and now they're just the biggest thing in town. So, but just being part of such a big club with such passionate supporters and underperforming individually as well, myself and the team just underperforming, it just kind of wears you down, and it's only when you step away from it that you kind of look at it and go, geez, I actually did alright not to just melt. Like, it was so hard, and you get here, and sometimes it just takes, after a bad performance, a cool head to go, we're still the same side we were before that bad performance. You know, we're still just as good as we were when we beat team X, Y and Z earlier in the year, so it's an interesting difference. Like,
I think to have that dynamic within a playing group and within a leadership group, I'm not sure if you are in a leadership group, but you are at Geelong, to have those different experiences is really important. To have that perspective, that level-headedness, as you say. Yeah,
it's great to get like, there's loads of successful players here when I arrived, because there's guys who've been here through the good years, but you get people in from a club that's been successful, they can really have some valuable information, but it can almost work the other way when somebody's come from a team that's maybe done things poorly for a long period of time. It can actually help to have somebody who can maybe spot those. And we've got a good mix in the leadership group at the minute, but it's a fun place to be, winning games.
How do you spoke about the different feel of the footy clubs, right? How do you kind of parlay that over the different administrations and boards and that kind of external culture, internal, external culture outside of the playing group?
Well, it's hard to know who drives. I guess the senior coach would be the one that would drive the overarching philosophy of a club. I'm not really sure. It's a bit of a conglomerate of different people making decisions, but Scotty, for a player who was mad as a brush, he's so calm. If all you knew about him was how he played, you'd think he'd be a nutcase as a coach.
We've seen vision of him in the box, and sometimes he does look so calm.
But even after games, after we played terribly, like Lucky Henderson, who I played with at Carlton, he would tell me like, we don't have many meetings after games because he likes to be measured in that. And last year we started the season really well. We weren't playing great, but winning games, and we lost a few games in a row. And he called us into the rooms after the game, and I was like, "Oh, here it is. This is it."
But you almost look like you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, here he is. He is human. This is great." And he called us in, but it was just, he's so consistent in his delivery, and everything is measured, and he's just an exceptional coach in that way. But it was just brought us in, and we just had a chat about what we thought happened, and I was sitting down thinking, I'm getting a dressing down here, but his ability to just be consistent week after week and performance after performance, it's a skill that not many people have. No. Like, they ride the emotional roller coaster as much as players. So to be able to just maintain that consistent feeling throughout the week and throughout the club, and it's just such a easy place to work.
It almost sounds like he's the I'm not angry, boys, I'm just
disappointed.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. Yeah, scream at me, please, don't tell me that.
But I mean, there is still a place for that 500.
Yeah, of course there is, and I don't want to imply that he can get fired up, don't worry about that. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that he has a philosophy on how things should be done, and he's not going to let his own emotions or anything else get in the way of him being the coach that he wants to be in and running the type of club that he wants to run. But it's just so consistent through media. I would never kind of worry about letting something slip in media. Like things can get jumped on, and I just know that in this organisation, if you made a mistake, they would just kind of say, "You made a mistake. We can sort of fix it. Don't stress."
So correct me if I'm wrong. It's got to be your third AFL coach. It's Bolton and Mick.
Nah. So I had Rats, Brett Rat, and I started it, and then Mick, and then if you want to count interim, JB, Johnny Barker, and then Bolt. I've had a few,
and that the fire and brimstone approach to now, and the kids coming through the system. How have you seen that change?
It was still a place for it, I guess, and I'm not sure it has changed. I guess it would be coach to coach.
So what about the kids coming to the system, the draftees? Have you seen a different tact used
in terms of approaching them as in their development? Well, we know a lot more, even the sports science side of things, so they'll get looked after better if they're starting to feel sore and all that kind of thing. I can only speak for kind of how we do it here, but I mean, I don't recall getting arrested too often in my first year or two, and you were kind of thrown in the deep end, much more measured and nuanced approach to the younger boys now, but I mean, they're coming in almost, maybe not AFL already, but professionally good to go, because the underage systems they have now are so good, so most of them know pretty well what to expect. And I mean, I'm pretty sure when they draft players, they really take into account personality and all that kind of thing as well, so you tend to only get drafted if you're pretty switched on and ready to go.
Yeah. Is there, in terms of that draft age and the kids coming in, and they've been so well programmed, the step is nowhere near
it's dramatic,
whereas it's dramatic.
Yeah.
How do you see that?
Yeah, but it's just so good. It's so, I mean, some of the guys we pick up are just so impressive, and some need a bit more guidance than others. That's a given, but they just know what's expected of them from day dot, and I mean it's a huge credit to the AFL for setting up whatever pathways they've set up. But we want to give all our players the best opportunity to succeed and become the best players they can be, and the way to do that is to send them into AFL clubs with some reasonable amount of experience and give them an idea of what's expected of them, and they've got that more than ever, I reckon.
Given your, I guess, limited exposure to the game initially, are there certain guys or players that were real mentors for you? Do you learn more from them?
Yeah, there's a couple spring straight to mind. Heath Scotland was one who, he was the one I would go to constantly if I wasn't playing great, or anything really needed to talk about. I hadn't spoken to him in a year or two, 2 years probably, after he retired, and then when I was tossing up the possibility of maybe changing club, I called him out of the blue and we went for a coffee. So it was kind of, after all that time, he's still the guy I think of when I need to try and make a footy decision. I respect him that much. And
why?
Well, he has been that mentor type for me from day dot. He was always the one who, and he was an exceptional footballer. I looked up to him in that regard as well. But of all the senior guys we've had, he's the one who's most approachable, who genuinely seemed to care the most, along with a few other guys. And because I respected him so much, I actually craved his respect, and I thought a good way of doing that was to pick his brain and see what it is he expects from me as a player and a teammate. And out of that, got to the stage where he was somebody whose opinion I wanted. So I literally called him and went for a coffee, having not spoken to him in 2 years probably, and asked his opinion.
And that kind of mentor relationship, did that just happen organically? Did you recognise that he was, the guy for you personally?
I'm pretty sure it came about by
or did he take you under his wing? Or
no, he didn't. I'm pretty sure it came about by filling his locker full of stuff and the stupid thing that blokes do in footy clubs. I used to do this thing where if there was new boots waiting at someone's locker, they just kind of get left there.
Yeah.
I'd wait for them to come in and I'd open their boots and say, new boots, these are nice, and I'd walk to the edge of the locker room and kick them as far as I could for no reason. These are nice, see your boots. And that was kind of my shtick for a few years.
That go down.
Yeah, great actually. I made loads of friends.
That's a bad argument.
Yeah. But it was funny, and he was a big kid as well, so he was happy to kind of run with it. But it are goofy things that blokes do to bond, you know, they're bloody big kids. But yeah, it happened really organically. And like I said, he's somebody I could tell genuinely cared about me being a player. And you can just sense that from people. It wasn't bravado, it wasn't put on.
Yeah.
And I really wanted his approval as a player and a bloke and a teammate and all that.
And so, given that Heath was that for you,
yeah,
changing clubs,
yep.
Has somebody at Geelong been that for you initially?
It was a few. So I mean, I really looked up to Harry, obviously. Actually, a player I really wanted to play with was Cam Guthrie. I know he's actually a bit younger than me, but there's a few guys I was thinking I really would like to see them up close. So there was a few, but I mean, Matty Scarlett's our defensive coach. So when I first got to the club, you know, you get the messages off every player and everyone and says who it is. When I got the one off Scarlett, that was the first time I kind of went, ooh. With a little schoolgirl again. Like, I got all giddy and I was like, oh, that's Matty Scarlett. And first day he met me, he came up and he's like, oh, I'm delighted we got you here. You know, I was stoked when they said they were going after you. And I was like, oh, Jesus. Stop. But so you try and latch on to him a bit. But I mean, we've got Enright now as well, and Nigel Lappin. Like, these are all unbelievable players. Like, it's outrageous, yeah. But Scarlo and Nigel, they're probably the coaches that I've lent on most and that have helped me most. Two of the best coaches I've had out of a lot, because I've had different assistant coaches, obviously. And then player-wise, Harry's really good to speak to. Harry sees the game really well. He's very well-grounded. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like, hell of a player. But he'd probably be the one that I would have approached more.
And have you identified someone? You've been really fortunate with, by the sounds, the guys that have helped you through. Mm-hmm. You pass that on?
Yeah, try to. In my time, I've had a few Irish guys come to the same club. Like, there was a couple like Carlton, and now Mark O'Connor's here as well. So you kind of try and help them when they need it. It's kind of, ideally, I'd love to get to a position with some of these younger guys where they would call me, you know, that sort of like I would Heath.
If you're approachable. If
I were approachable and didn't kick their boots everywhere. A bit less of a bully might help. But yeah, there's a few good guys that I think could be players here that haven't quite played yet. Like Zach Guthrie's going to be a hell of. I know he's played, but he's going to be a serious player.
Yeah.
And gets a few cakes on.
I'm glad you mentioned Cam Guthrie. What was it, or what is it about him that caught your eye?
Yeah, well, he had that stellar year a few years ago, or certainly the first half. He was dominant. I loved the way he moved and kicked, and he was similar. Better, but a similar player to me, and you know, moving off the half back, and I just love the way he used it, and I love the way he moved. There's always a few guys. I don't know if you were the same, but guys at different clubs you loved watching. Robbie Gray, lots of people say him. I love watching him, and Burgoyne is the other one. I used to watch a lot of vision of him and Birchall actually. But yeah, so Cam was, when he had that really good year, I used to watch him and just think, I wonder how's he doing that? Like, how's he getting to those positions so often? And then he came to Trent, and he was just so much fun to work with. It's nice to see these guys as opposition players and then find out what they're like in person.
I mean, you played with some unbelievable players, obviously, at Carlton.
Yep.
And who stands out?
Yeah.
For you more there than the rest?
Yes, Simpson. Kate Simpson. He's the best player I played with.
Judd.
Yeah. So, kind of for me as a player and my development, Kate Simpson, and like Juddy's one of the all-time greats. So obviously, it kind of goes without saying. But for me, getting to play alongside Simo probably taught me more, certainly on field, than anybody else. And I reckon Juddy would understand what I'm saying, because I know he rates him incredibly highly. But Kate Simpson's a rock star. He's such a good player, so underrated, and he's been there for a long time and maybe not had the success that other guys as experienced as him have had. But he is just so good. And
why is he so underrated? I mean, externally he's so underrated, right? But internally, everybody that's played with him
says the same.
I mean, almost on par with somebody like Chris Judd?
Well, yeah, internally he is. Anyone who knows him, has played him, will absolutely get where I'm coming from. But
why? What
yeah.
So characteristics that
he's a pretty quiet guy off field. But again, the kind of guy who would always have a chat with you in that. But he's a pretty reserved sort of character. But he is just, talk about your white line fever. Like, he'd be the first guy you'd pick going into a bat. He's just the toughest, most courageous leader I've played with. He weighs 12 kilos and he just will not back down. He's just an incredible player, and I learned so much from him. Like I said, on field and off field, but he is reserved off field. That's just his personality. But meticulous in his preparation, like super professional, super hard worker, and then just his on-field stuff was outrageous. He's the kind of player that, if he'd been at one of these, like Hawthorn, one of these hugely successful clubs, I reckon people would be talking about him as like an Enright and all these guys. Like, he just would be. He's just a star.
Did you kick his boots?
Yeah. Launched him. I used to target him. I think this is the only way I made friends at Carlton, was kicking boots.
How have those pranks been accepted down the highway?
Yeah, fine. I broke their spirits. They tried to snub it out early. I broke their spirit.
Who's the crosshairs?
Well, Paddy's an easy target. You can't miss him. And then Stewie cops a lot. Matt Blitzavs is a pest.
Yeah.
Horland Smith. There's a lot of easy targets here. But Paddy probably cops the brunt of my abuse. It's not pranks, it's abuse.
Who has the? If it was Simpson, at Carlton, who would it be at Geelong?
As the current player.
Well, yeah, Carlton was a big name, like Joe Murphy, give these guys, and there's obviously Ablett, Danger, Selwood here off the top of your head. Does anyone jump up like Simpson?
As a Geelong,
the
ones you said Joel would have been an easy pick. Down the back, we're such a young back line. Harry, obviously, he's a bit like his meticulousness off field's incredible. He hasn't missed much footy. I know he's injured right now, but he's been super resilient for his career. And then in the back line, it's a tough one. Somebody he's actually getting a lot of credit right now, as he should. Mark Blitzavs is a hell of a teammate, seriously a hell of a teammate. I just love his ability. He's Mr. Fix-It for us, and I think he has been for a long time. But he's just exceptional. Down back, he's killing it at the minute. It's hard to say. We kind of lost Mac, we lost Doms last year, and those guys would easily fit into that class as well. But it's a tricky one.
Essentially put all your eggs in one basket to a certain extent, but what is it outside of football, away from footy, that's your passion or that sort of keeps you engaged?
Well, I have a few things going on. I love golf. I'm a hack, but I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. So that's kind of my downtime hobby thing. Don't see myself forging a career as a golfer post footy, but outside of that, I've got a couple of little business things going back home. I really enjoy the media side of things. So actually podcasts, I must admit, I love the idea of doing them. I think they're just an awesome way of earning a slice if you can. So the media side of things really interests me. Doing a little bit of radio, writing a few articles and that kind of thing. So I'm at a stage now where I can kind of dip my toe in a few different areas and see what tickles my fancy. But I'm pretty sure I'd like to get down the media path.
And of course, the podcast you're talking about, you're doing some stuff for the
doing the Geelong one, which is nice. It gives you an idea of how it goes. I quite like these style ones that are more of just a conversation. And God, if I could ever get one of those up and going, that would be the plan. But a few things.
Yep. We'll wrap things up shortly, but I'm just going to read out a few names to you now.
Go.
And what's the first word that comes to your head? Mick Malthouse.
Oh, Dad, is that weird? He's like, Daddy? No. He is the father figure, can I say that? He was great to me in my time there.
Bryce Gibbs.
Skillful.
Brendan Bolton.
Teacher.
Mark Murphy.
Skillful.
Chris Judd.
Leader.
Dangerfield.
Power. Oh, God, no, can you ask me that again? Flog, big head, something, jeez.
You'll appreciate that, I'm sure. Gary Ablett Jr.
Legend.
Senior.
Oh, legend.
Senior or junior?
Oh, well, I don't really know senior.
You probably don't either, must
So, yeah.
Well, the same thing, Joel or Scott Selwood?
Joel? Sorry, Scoot.
Caught that. Caught that. When was the last time you cried?
Oh, God. What was the... Right, slightly off track, but I was close to tears. I was watching a cartoon movie. Oh, what's the Lion King?
Lion King?
When the lion died, I've never seen it. Are you serious? I was like, you can't let kids watch this. The little baby lion. So I don't know if I did cry, but far out, I was close.
I think most men have shed a tear.
Oh man,
no,
so heavy.
What's your motto? Like, what do you?
God, I got asked this before. It'd be something low key, take it easy.
Do you cover it in ink? Is there any sort of little initials or any kind of thing you look at there that?
There's a little poem on the inside of my forearm that, if you could nail it down to a few words, would be a good motto. But I'm not sure. It's a poem called "My Mind to Me a Kingdom Is." Yeah. I got it after a few friends back. I don't want to get too heavy. A few friends of mine passed away through suicide, and we got this. I was curious about if I could find something that referenced like having a healthy mind and just being happy, all that kind of cheesy stuff. And I found that poem. So if you could, anybody wants to Google it and read it and try and nut it down to a few words, you could probably make one out of that.
You've got that disposition about you in terms of being so light-hearted. I mean, how do you? Because there aren't. I mean, particularly in football, be it through social media or the pressures or the expectations.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder now than what it was, certainly when I first started.
Yeah, well, I reckon it's harder to hit somebody that's got a bit of a bloody personality. And, I mean, it's such a stressful environment. And, like, I'm firm, like, the media aren't out to get anybody. Like, everyone thinks you just got to be so careful. Like, it's like this. If I'm doing a podcast and I make a joke about Paddy having a big head, like, I'm trusting that the article is not going to read, like, rift in the Geelong camp. So I just think, like, take it easy, no one's out to get you. And it's such a stressful environment that when you can make it lighthearted, you should.
Yeah. So. Do you have any regrets? Are there any moments where you think, what if?
Nah, certainly had I not... No, I don't. No. I mean, there's moments, mistakes in games and little things you take back. But no big decisions that I think, like, I shouldn't have left or I shouldn't have come out or anything like that.
And finally, if you were the CEO of the AFL, what would you do?
Pay a rise for international players? Is that an option?
what if you're a cookie?
Take me private jet to me private resort. And
that is a perfect way to wrap up. Zach Tuohy, thank you very much.
No problem, it was a pleasure.
We're talking footy.